We have completed our very successful attack on 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. All planes are now outside of Iran airspace. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Fordow. All planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this, Trump says. Now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention to this matter, the president says. We're just getting this in. He just sent this out moments ago, just before 8 p.m. Eastern time. Trump saying the attacks are successful. The strikes are a decision for the U.S. as Iran has pledged to retaliate if it joined the Israeli assault. And for Trump personally, having won the White House on the promise of keeping America out of conflicts, we're now seeing that we are seeing a number of strikes from the U.S. in Iranian territory, including Fordow, Natanz, and the sites in Esfahan as well.
Let's start from the beginning.
We have spent more than $7 trillion in fighting wars in the Middle East. As a candidate for president, I loudly pledged a new approach. Great nations do not fight endless wars. We went from mistakes in Iraq to Egypt to Libya to President Obama's line in the sand in Syria. Each of these actions have helped to throw the region into chaos.
Trump's promise to unwind America's foreign commitments won the vote of some anti-war libertarians who argued that, while many of his policy views were odious, foreign policy mattered most.
Donald is a peacenik, practically. Certainly compared to the warmongering Hillary.
On the campaign trail, Trump attacked Clinton for pushing U.S. intervention in Libya as Secretary of State and her 2002 vote in the Senate for the Iraq War.
Any vote that might lead to war should be hard, but I cast it with conviction.
Almost everything she's done in foreign policy has been a mistake, and it's been a disaster. With the dangerous idea that we could make Western democracies out of countries that had no experience or interest in becoming a Western democracy. Obviously, the war in Iraq was a big, fat mistake. We spent $2 trillion, thousands of lives. We don't even have it. We should have never been in Iraq. We have destabilized the Middle East.
Trump isn't the first modern president to promise an end to foreign entanglements on the campaign trail, only to double down on those commitments once in office. Candidate Barack Obama called Iraq a dumb war that he would end and never replicate.
We have to use our military wisely, and we did not use our military wisely in Iraq.
Obama did temporarily withdraw troops from Iraq on Bush's pre-negotiated timetable, but intervened again a few years later after ISIS filled the power vacuum. He also expanded the war on terror into several new countries and began personally ordering covert drone strikes, one of which killed a 16-year-old American and another that killed at least 13 people headed to a wedding. Even George W. Bush, who started the disastrous wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, ran against nation building on the campaign trail.
I just don't think it's the role of the United States to walk into a country and say, we do it this way, so should you.
Unlike previous administrations, I have kept America out of new wars, and our troops are coming home. You know, when crooked Hillary Clinton was running against me, she said, look at him, listen to him. He will start a war, a world war. We had no wars other than I defeated ISIS in its entirety, 100% of the ISIS caliber. Listen to his rhetoric. Listen to his horrible tone. I said that horrible tone is going to keep people from fighting us, and that's what happened. We had no wars. It's been 81 years since that happened for a president. No wars other than ending some wars that we're in and defeating ISIS. Under Trump, we will have no more wars, no more disruptions, and we will have prosperity and peace for all. And again, we're going to bring back that American dream for all of the young people in this audience and some of the old ones.
End of Flashback.
Tonight, President Trump on the world stage at the G7 summit here in Canada. But dominating this high-stakes meeting is the escalating conflict between Israel and Iran.
Israel's doing very well right now.
With Iran facing a ferocious Israeli air campaign, President Trump tonight acknowledging Iran has reached out, wanting to de-escalate.
They'd like to talk, but they should have done that before. I'd say Iran is not winning this war, and they should talk, and they should talk immediately before it's too late.
We are following breaking news. The White House has now issued a timeline for when President Trump will decide whether to take action against Iran. This is Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt just moments ago.
Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks.
Several days later.
Breaking moments ago, new reports from open source plane spotters show 6 B-2 stealth bombers from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri appearing to head toward a U.S. Air Force base in Guam. The B-2 can carry 2 15-ton bunker buster bombs that could be used to target Iran's heavily fortified Fordo nuclear site. This is a second U.S. aircraft carrier will arrive in the Middle East this weekend. President Trump will return later today to the White House for an intelligence briefing.
Later that same evening.
I'm Austin Westfall. We're getting breaking news. President Trump posting on Truth Social moments ago that the U.S. has completed an attack on 3 nuclear sites in Iran. It reads as such: "We have completed our very successful attack on 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan. All planes are now outside of Iran airspace. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Fordo. All planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this," Trump says. "Now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention to this matter," the president says. We're just getting this in. He just sent this out moments ago, just before 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Trump saying the attacks are successful. The strikes are a decision for the U.S. as Iran has pledged to retaliate if it joined the Israeli assault. And for Trump personally, having won the White House on the promise of keeping America out of conflicts, we're now seeing that we are seeing a number of strikes from the U.S. in Iranian territory, including Fordo, Natanz, and the sites in Esfahan as well.
President Trump said tonight if peace doesn't come quickly, he will go after additional targets in the region, saying most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. He also praised the U.S. military as the only one in the world to be able to do what was done tonight.
Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success.
President Trump addressing his decision to strike 3 of Iran's nuclear sites to prevent the country from building a nuclear bomb. He says Iran has repeatedly threatened to destroy Israel and says the U.S. completely obliterated its key nuclear enrichment centers, including the heavily fortified Fordo, a facility located 300 feet below the surface of the ground. The bomb used is tens of thousands of pounds and requires a special jet to deploy the weapon, equipment that only the U.S. possesses. More than a week ago, Israel launched a surprise attack on Iranian sites, and the country retaliated with a series of missile and drone strikes on Israeli infrastructure.
Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
The order we received from our commander-in-chief was focused, it was powerful, and it was clear. We devastated the Iranian nuclear program.
I know that battle damage is of great interest. Final battle damage will take some time, but initial battle damage assessments indicate that all 3 sites sustained extremely severe damage and destruction.
Welcome back. So we want to talk once again about how remarkable this operation was. So let's rewind the clock here. Operation Midnight Hammer all kicks off with a couple of planes being sent out west to Guam. That was the decoy, a couple of B-2 stealth bombers. But the rest of that strike package, the real strike package, taking off from Whiteman Air Force Base, including 7 of those B-2s, flying more than 7,000 miles to Iran to conduct their operation. And here's what happened once they got on target here. You had the 7 B-2s, but in front of them, you had fighter jets sweeping for enemy fighters, enemy anti-aircraft batteries. And once those bombers came in and hit the target, you also had a guided missile sub down here shooting about 30 Tomahawks at Isfahan, where they had all sorts of tunnels and enriched uranium in those tunnels. Remarkable operation. For more on that, we want to send it out to Jennifer Griffin live at the Pentagon. She's been diving into what exactly happened. She's been talking to her contacts all weekend. Jennifer, fill us in. What's the latest?
Well, Bill, U.S. military forces right now on high alert across the Middle East, expecting an imminent response from Iran. The U.S. Navy actively planning its response should Iran's Revolutionary Guard Navy mine the Strait of Hormuz. Few here at the Pentagon think this is over, despite Saturday's flawless military strike on Iran's 3 nuclear facilities, a plan that has been honed and practiced since 2008. U.S. B-2 pilots have been practicing this 37-hour round-trip flight to the Middle East for years. The 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs tested against hardened targets as recently as last year.
This operation underscores the unmatched capabilities and global reach of the United States military. As the president clearly said last night, no other military in the world could have done this.
125 U.S. warplanes, each B-2 refueled in midair 3 to 4 times each way on the nonstop 18-hour flight from Missouri. An air refueling bridge across the Mediterranean and Middle East. 14 GBU-57 bunker buster bombs among the 75 satellite-guided munitions dropped. And 30 Tomahawk missiles fired from an Ohio-class submarine 400 miles away from Iran, which stayed in the air 1 hour and 40 minutes, time to drop after the last B-2 struck in Fordo. Captain Todd Sawhill, an intelligence targeting officer, focused on this problem for years and was asked whether the Tomahawks could destroy Isfahan and the deep tunnels where the Iranian uranium conversion takes place.
No, in that case, it's extremely limited because those weapons are really designed to go after surface targets. They don't have much penetration capability. The problem is, like you mentioned, the mountain, which is deep under hard granite and unreachable by conventional munitions, to include the GBU-57.
Isfahan is arguably a tougher target than Fordo. Now we await the bomb damage assessment.
President Trump expected to meet with his national security team at 1 p.m. Eastern time today to discuss the next steps in Iran.
Madeline Rivera joins us live from Washington with all the details. Maddie, hello.
Good morning, Todd and Carly. Vice President J.D. Vance maintains the administration has not closed the door to diplomacy. Vance says this is a moment to actually reset the relationship with Iran because before the strikes, Iran was stonewalling the president, which is why he approved the strikes in the first place.
If you back up a little bit, we engaged in this diplomatic process. I think that he decided probably by mid-May that this process was not going anywhere, and so he decided to issue some private ultimatums to the Iranians. And then eventually, of course, we decided to destroy the Fordo nuclear facility and some of these other facilities ourselves.
As for the end goal here, Vance says they don't want a regime change. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the same thing, that they're focusing simply on eliminating Iran's ability to have a nuclear weapon.
If what they want is a country that has a nuclear energy program, they can have that. I mean, many countries around the world. I don't like the regime, but we're not into the regime change business here. We're into the safety and security of the United States business. So that's a choice they'll have to make. I hope they're being rational in their decision making. But I think the most important thing I hope they realize is the game is up.
But in a turnaround, the president did not rule out the possibility of a regime change, saying in a Truth Social post, it's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? Niga.
I'm Jan Jeffcoat. It is Monday, June 23rd. This morning, the U.S. and Israel on high alert after President Trump followed through on his promise Iran needed to come to the negotiating table over its nuclear program or face the consequences. We do have team coverage with Matt Galka tracking the reports of damage to Iran's nuclear program. Atra El-Nashar has reaction from lawmakers. We start, though, with Mark Boyle at the live desk as we monitor any threats from Iran, which Mark, Trump has already warned against any retaliation on U.S. targets, as we know.
He's made that very clear. We're watching that closely this morning, Jen. Tehran and Tel Aviv trading attacks this morning already. Some new video into the live desk right now out of Tehran following multiple rounds of strikes. Iranian state media reporting the underground enrichment site at Fordow was hit again. Right now, there's no immediate word on the amount of damage. That breaks within the past couple of hours this morning. We're also seeing reports that Iran sent a message to President Trump during the G7 summit, so several days ago, threatening to activate sleeper cells in the U.S. to launch terror attacks if he ordered those strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. Of course, we know that happened. A live look over the White House this morning, 2 minutes past the hour here on the East Coast. Right now, Americans on U.S. soil overseas, they are worried. They're on high alert about being potential targets. The Department of Homeland Security issued a terrorism advisory alert. The State Department issued a warning on Sunday that Americans should be on alert. Right now, major U.S. cities bracing for possible retaliation like New York, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C. Down in Texas, the governor there ordered state law enforcement to elevate readiness. Here's Vice President J.D. Vance talking about the U.S. is ready to defend itself.
Well, it's always hard to guess what the other side is going to do, but what we're prepared for is if they attack us in a maximal direction, first of all, we have got maximum defensive posture. I think that we're going to be able to defend as many of our people as possible. And of course, I'd encourage Americans to pray for our guys in the Middle East because, yes, they are under a significant amount of duress and a significant amount of threat right now. But then, of course, John, if the Iranians attack us, they're going to be met with overwhelming force.
At the same time, we are seeing a concerning alliance brewing. Russia's former president says multiple countries are ready to provide Iran with nuclear warheads. A former Russian president posted on social media talking about the enrichment of nuclear material, saying in part, quote, "Now we can say it outright. The future production of nuclear weapons will continue." He goes on to say the number of countries are ready to directly supply Iran with their nuclear warheads. On Sunday, world leaders, including President Trump and Britain's Prime Minister, called on Iran to return to the peace conversation talks.
We just got a statement from Iran's armed forces. I'm going to read you little parts of it, if I can, General. In response to what they call the blatant military aggression of the criminal regime of the United States against the peaceful nuclear facilities of the Islamic Republic of Iran and in clear violation of international law, Iran has launched a powerful and destructive missile strike on the Al Udeid air base in Qatar. The operation is being carried out under the sacred call. The message to the White House and its allies is clear. It says, Iran will never leave any violation of its territorial integrity, sovereignty, or national security unanswered. We warn the enemies of the Islamic Republic. The era of hit and run is over. The determined will of Iran's powerful and popular armed forces means any repeated provocation will accelerate the collapse of the U.S. military structure in the region. And so what we have is missiles heading for U.S. bases in the region. Your reaction to what we're seeing right now?
Well, I'm glad we probably have some airplanes on scramble alert. Hopefully they're up in the air right now, taking on those ballistic missiles and possibly drones as well. We'll have to wait and see the numbers, the quality, the quantity, because that's going to make a difference. It'll be important to find out if this is just a performative response, which is meant to demonstrate that they are resisting but are really not serious because they don't want to draw the U.S. military into a fight, or if this is the real deal. I mean, I would also note, as Courtney said, while we have the largest air base at Al Udeid, it's also the head of Central Command Forward is located at that base as well. So they've picked these targets carefully. I would just hope we wait and see what happens. Hopefully we can make sure there are no Americans injured. I was really concerned in that message where they said we won't put up with hit and run. which is another way of saying our view that this is one and done hasn't been well received by Iran.
Right now, Qatar is confirming as well as condemning this attack by Iran, launching missiles on U.S. military forces in that region. Tensions right now are on high alert all across the Middle East. The military base there in Qatar has roughly 10,000 U.S. troops stationed there. It serves as the forward headquarters for U.S. Central Command, better known as CENTCOM. It is the largest U.S. military installation in the Middle East. Just in the Middle East alone, there's about 40,000 U.S. troops in that region. All right, let's get out now. Let's get back to senior national correspondent Brian Entin, who just arrived in Doha. He joins us live now. Brian, what more can you tell us? We're looking at this video that you shot moments ago showing those lights there in the sky, those missiles.
Yeah, that was right after we landed here in Qatar, Nicole. We had gotten off the plane, got our bags. We were driving out of the airport on our way to our hotel. Sort of had a feeling that something could be imminent because they had just closed the airspace over the entire country of Qatar. And we were just driving and started to hear like bangs, like just bangs in the car. And I said to my photographer, Luis, what do you think that is? Do you think that could be the attack that was possibly going to happen? And then I don't know. We were on the highway. We pulled over. We got out. Other people started pulling over their cars too. We looked up into the sky over Doha, and this video is what I shot. And that was the best I could do in the moment. It was so dark, but you can see there were just these little flashes of light, many of them flying away from the United States military base here, which we now know were missile defense systems that were launching in the directions of Iran. But again, they were going right over downtown Doha. So it was really something to see right over the skyline. But there were at least two that I saw that appeared to be flashes in the sky going in the opposite direction, the opposite end of Doha, going over the skyscrapers and then toward the military base, which I would assume were the missiles from Iran. The latest we're hearing here in Qatar from the government of Qatar is that their missile defense systems were able to successfully stop all of these missiles that were headed for the U.S. base here. So I mean, it's all happening very, very quickly. So we can't say for sure, but it appears that that the worst didn't happen at the base, that there maybe was not a missile with a direct hit. I saw some getting very, very close, though. Again, those two that I saw headed in the opposite direction from all of the ones leaving the base. But I'm just looking behind me now, Nicole. The base is about 20 miles behind me. It's relatively quiet right now. There were never any sirens that went off here in Doha that I heard. And again, it was just kind of bizarre because if you've been to Doha, I mean, this is an international destination. You've got people from all over the world. It's now, what time is it here? It's 8:30 at night. People, when we pulled over, I mean, people were out partying on the side of the streets. They were out just walking around with friends, and everybody just sort of stopped and couldn't believe what was happening in that moment, that you had these missiles flying right over the city, Nicole.
The take here in the United States, I don't know if what you're hearing over there, is that we may have avoided the worst today, right? It's a lot of the markets are calm, stocks are up, oil's down, and people say, well, maybe this is it, maybe it's over. And if so, that would be certainly a big win, I think, for the Trump administration and what have you. But there's this open question: is there more to come from the United States or from Iran, especially with that Strait of Hormuz, which I would assume you're watching closely, right?
Of course, and just sort of a sigh of relief here also, Connell, when you think about the fact that there are 10,000 Americans. I mean, think about that for a second. The troops and their families living on this massive base right behind me, and they had missiles shot right at them. And when I was looking up in the sky, that's what I was thinking about, just all of our men and women, and oh my gosh, what if these things start landing? And there were two that I saw that made it over to the base and sort of disappeared over the horizon. And I was just sort of waiting, oh my gosh, are we going to see some kind of explosion? I never saw an explosion. The latest here from the Qatari government is that they were able to intercept all of the rockets from Iran with their missile defense systems along with the U.S. systems. There were no casualties, no deaths, no injuries, no serious damage, which when you think about just all the American lives right in this area, Connell, we just have to be so thankful.
The next question is, how do we respond? So Iran is basically saying we want to de-escalate, even though you messed us up, And we don't know how bad those facilities are damaged yet. We'll get to that story in a little bit. But even now, we're saying, okay, very light response. So if our response back to that is, okay, good, let's get the hell out of here. I can't believe that didn't start a giant war. Thank God that they didn't do much of a response. Great, we said we destroy their nuclear facilities. We did, we're out. By the way, if Trump did that, then all of MAGA would be like, told you, it was just a bombing, it was no big deal, etc. But Israel's never satisfied.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, they're not gonna say, oh, it's okay. You helped us do our fake reason for going in.
Exactly.
No, we want regime change.
Exactly.
So I don't care that their response was light. Provoke a bigger response and provoke something larger and larger and larger until we do regime change.
100%.
Okay, now you have look, guys, the beauty of this is that we tell you what's gonna happen before it happens.
Exactly.
We told you that this wasn't about the nukes. They don't even have nukes. We told you that they would try regime change. And guess what? Trump over the weekend instantly changes the goalposts to regime change. So we're all gonna see with our own eyes. Are we gonna get out or are we gonna go further in because we haven't finished the job for Israel yet?
This just broke, and I want to mention it because it's relevant to this conversation. But again, I go back to the same issue of, can I trust Trump considering what just happened? Well, he claims, and he just announced that there is a complete ceasefire between the United States and Iran.
Interesting.
Right, so let me just read you verbatim what he posted. Here's the complete post. So congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions, I should say, for 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire, and upon the 24th hour, an official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. During each ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful. This sounds like a lot of cope and wishful thinking, I'm gonna be honest with you, but I hope it's true, I really do. Let me read the rest. On the assumption that everything works as it should, which it will, I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, courage, and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. This is a war that could have gone on for years and destroyed the entire Middle East, but it didn't and never will. God bless Israel, God bless Iran, God bless the Middle East, God bless the United States of America, and God bless the world. That's the full post. Again, it's hard to trust him given the fact that he lied to our faces about pursuing diplomacy when he was actually planning for the opposite. But I really, really hope this is true. I just don't know.
Yeah, so look, we're live on the air and you heard what I just said a minute ago. So I said if he can manage to get out of this, MAGA will be ecstatic and say, see what he told you, it wasn't a war. Although, by the way, he just said it's a war. A 12-day war, even if that holds, is a war. He's calling it a war, okay? So, all right, now, is it going to hold? I'd be shocked, but I'd love to be shocked. So our job is to deliver facts to you guys. So if it holds, we'll come back and say it held. I didn't like the bombing. It risked a giant war, but hey, they got out of it and they didn't do regime change, and it wasn't good on any count. But I'm thrilled that it ended. Right?
Can I ask you something?
But my guess is Netanyahu's gonna go in there and poke the hornet's nest and poke it and poke it and poke it until he gets what he wants.
Right, because again, just to reiterate, regime change is what Netanyahu has been wanting for literally decades. That's the real purpose for this war. Now, this is the question I have, and I'm gonna just admit that I'm ignorant on this because I don't know if this makes any sense or if this is how ceasefires are usually done. So as Trump put it, the ceasefire would begin with Iran stopping. And then after that, Israel would stop. Wouldn't it make sense for them to both stop bombing each other?
No, it's an asinine comment, of course. Like, I don't want, you're right not to breeze past it. What he's saying is, Iran, you'll stop now. We'll keep bombing you for another 12 to 24 hours. And you'll just have to sit there and take it like a schmuck. But at the end of that 24 hours, we promise that we'll stop bombing you, wink, except we've lied every single time. The Israelis lied when they said they weren't gonna do it. Then the Americans lied when we said we weren't gonna do it. And we already murdered your lead negotiator. But yeah, if you wanna believe us, sure. We're gonna bomb you for another 24 hours. We'll probably bomb the living crap out of you, and you better not do anything. And at the end, we'll be done. Even if that's true, that's already monstrous and terrible, etc. But I would take it, right? But if in 24 hours they murder the Ayatollah and go for regime change, that's not a ceasefire. Okay, so let's see what happens. We're now, the whole world is watching for these 24 hours.
The next day.
We begin this morning with breaking news. The ceasefire between Israel and Iran may be falling apart. Just hours after President Donald Trump brokered the deal, Israel says Iran broke it, and now Israeli forces are striking back. Israel's defense minister has ordered the military to resume attacks, accusing Tehran of launching missiles into northern Israel after the truce began. The Israeli military posting on X that it will respond with force. Minutes later, Iran's top security council praised its military actions in the 12-day war and says it still expects the ceasefire to hold, but warned of a decisive and regretful response to any aggression. At the same time, Iranian state TV is denying missiles were fired after the ceasefire took effect. And now U.S. lawmakers want answers.
This ceasefire so far doesn't mention anything about what our bombing of Iran was predicated on, which is destroying a so-called nuclear program. Well, does this mean that Trump's a party to the ceasefire? He says that Iran and Israel are. I hope the United States is as well, because if it's not, we're going to have to push this through Congress.
That was Congressman Thomas Massie, who's pushing a measure to block U.S. involvement in the conflict, but says he'll hold off if the ceasefire holds. Lawmakers are set to receive a classified briefing today on the U.S. airstrikes that targeted Iran's nuclear development sites. Overnight, both sides agreed to the truce, with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declaring victory, saying Israel had met all its objectives, disrupting Iran's nuclear and missile programs, damaging its military leadership, and gaining air dominance over Tehran. But just before the ceasefire took hold, Iran fired a wave of missiles that killed at least 4 people in Israel. Israel responded with airstrikes across Iran, and now the fragile calm may be unraveling.
Is that it? No, there's more.
President Trump is saying that his warning to Israel has worked out in his favor.
The president wrote on Truth Social, Israel is not going to attack Iran. All planes will turn around and head home, while doing a friendly plane wave to Iran. Nobody will be hurt. The ceasefire is in effect. Trump had wrote on Truth Social this morning, Israel, do not drop those bombs. If you do, it is a major violation. Bring your pilots home now. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States.
This entire episode stemmed from Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz saying that Iran had violated the agreement. Katz said he had ordered a strike on Tehran in response, despite Iran's armed forces general staff having denied any such violation.
Trump then lashed out at the two countries, even going so far as to drop an expletive. Let's watch.
I didn't like plenty of things I saw yesterday. I didn't like the fact that Israel unloaded right after we made the deal. They didn't have to unload. And I didn't like the fact that the retaliation was very strong. But in all fairness, Israel unloaded a lot. And now I hear Israel just went out because they felt it was violated by one rocket that didn't land anywhere. That's not what we want, I'll tell you. And I'm telling you, I'm not happy about that, Israel, either. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
Per Reuters, the last round of strikes before the ceasefire killed 4 people in southern Israel, and Iranian officials said that 9 people were killed in northern Iran. Reuters also reports that sources say Qatar secured Tehran's agreement to the ceasefire and that 3 Trump officials were in contact with the Iranians.
Iran had fired missiles into the US's largest Middle East military base, which is indeed in Qatar. Nobody was hurt, and Trump thanked Tehran for warning about those strikes beforehand.
Israel says that Iran had launched 3 missiles after the ceasefire went into effect, but that they caused no casualties nor did any damage. The Israeli Air Force then destroyed a radar array in Tehran. The Israeli Prime Minister's office says that Israel was refraining from further strikes after Prime Minister Netanyahu's call with Trump. So hopefully we get a ceasefire, an end to hostilities that actually sticks here. Trump, in colorful language, is getting at the heart of the difficulty, which is that we're talking about countries, governments that have been in conflict for a very, very long period of time, that often want to attack each other. And then I guess my question to Trump, if I was out there this morning chatting with him in front of the helicopter, would be, well, then why are we involved? If as you seem to recognize, and I agree, they just want to fight each other, can we get out of their way? I mean, it's not. I mean, we can try to structure diplomacy, but we shouldn't be fighting one side's wars for them. We're just going to get drawn into an endless conflict as well, which it kind of sounds like Trump is once again realizing maybe his detour from the I don't want to get involved in more Middle East wars, peace, no new wars. He took a little NEOCON detour last couple of weeks. Maybe he's back on track now.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.